Welcome into Austin now, live from the Fox 7 Austin newsroom. Obviously, so many people asking us about this winter weather watch. You also called it now extreme cold watch. What did you just say?
Oh, we have an extreme cold watch as well.
Extreme cold watch. Okay, so we're bringing in meteorologist Leslie London because I don't know anything specific about weather. So we bring in the experts to help us. So many people in the Austin area wondering, Leslie, like how serious is this weekend?
Well, it's definitely going to be an important one that we're being cautious, checking in on that forecast, because it does look like all of us are probably going to see some ice, some icy conditions. So travel-wise, that's the big concern, right? Getting ice on those roads. So I always emphasize, if you can stay home during that time, that's the best thing. If you must travel, be super safe. Check in, though, because it's going to keep updating. It's been updating. We talked yesterday, and even since then, things have looked a little different. Timing-wise.
What has changed since yesterday? Because I know we brought you on for a little bit yesterday, and you were saying it's a little early, so you didn't want to exactly say definitively this is the situation, but what do you know now compared to yesterday?
So it's still a little early, and the closer you get, it's going to get better and better, but we're still just able to kind of look at the main two models. Their timing is a little different. One of them, though, and usually the one that's a little bit more accurate, has now pushed the timing back for how cold we're going to get, the time we drop below freezing, because that's what we're watching for, right? It's going to rain, but once you get below that freezing point, that's when we see freezing rain and sleet, and the concerns start to come in. And obviously, if you get even colder, you're going to get snow. Still doesn't look like we're going to get snow, any of us.
Really? Okay.
So the models are keeping the snow to the north of our area. So instead, it's just going to be that freezing rain, sleet potential.
Why do we get that sleet instead of just maybe a more normal snowfall for some people? What causes that?
So it has to do with the column of air.
See, this is why we bring her in here. The column of air. I didn't know this. Okay.
So if you think about it, clouds are way, way, way up in the sky, right?
All right.
So when the temperatures change down here at the surface, that's what we're measuring, right?
Okay.
The whole column all the way up to the top is not going to be the same temperature all the way up there. So when we get this specific system, it's kind of uplifting air. So you usually get the cold air. I wish I had like a picture, but it's like kind of like the cold air like this.
I don't have any animations
visuals.
Here. Right.
But the warm air will have to go above it, just like warm air rises, right? So it ends up going above it. So basically you get kind of a profile where every column is going to have a different thing. So the point is that you get freezing rain, where up above it's still a little bit warmer. So you're getting rain all the way down, but then the bottom layer is cold. So by the time it hits the ground, it's going to freeze. So that's how you get freezing rain.
Got it.
Sleet is where it starts frozen, but then a portion of the column is warm enough for it to melt. But then as it keeps going down, the next portion is cold enough to refreeze. And that's how you get sleet on the ground.
Different columns. And so, in talking about, whether or not people should drive, you were saying this yesterday, and I'm sure your answer is the same today, but just, it seems like specifically that Saturday going into Sunday, just avoid the roads altogether, it seems like?
Yeah, so the timing that I mentioned that's changed is now one of the models is showing that we're going to drop below freezing a lot later, which actually would be really good. Initially, yesterday, we were kind of thinking it was going to be in the morning, and then throughout the day, it gets colder on Saturday, and then all of us would start to see it. But now it looks like we won't start seeing people drop below freezing until the evening. So it will be more of the nighttime hours into the morning, Sunday morning, which is still what we were saying is kind of more of the scarier time. But if we have more temperatures above freezing before that point, then that's good, because people tend to be out and about more during the day. We want the least amount of time possible with these cold temperatures. And once the precipitation stops, because it's supposed to stop early Sunday morning. So once you dry out, even if we're cold, because we're going to be really cold Sunday night into Monday morning, but it won't be raining. So it's not a...
So we're looking at like possibly, like you said, Friday night into Sunday, but maybe not that Monday morning?
Through Sunday, you're saying?
Yeah. Or no?
So Friday looks like rain all day.
Okay.
Friday night, technically Friday, that goes to midnight, right? That is still like rain. Then it's those early AM hours. Now it looks like most likely we're not going to start seeing the mixed precipitation until maybe midday Saturday.
I think people get a better idea when you start throwing out numbers in terms of like how cold it's going to get. So what are some of the numbers you throw out for a low where people would go, wow, that's cold?
So for I'll give you
I was gonna say,
specifically
you
what
got
I
numbers
did.
too.
So Saturday night into Sunday morning, that low I have is 18.
Really?
And then, yes.
Wow.
But
18 degrees.
Then get this. The reason we have the extreme cold watch is because wind chill. So when you've got wind coming through, we were going to have some wind pushing through. It's going to feel colder. So they're saying we could even feel below zero at some point.
Oh my gosh. Here.
Yeah, all of us are under that extreme cold watch. More likely in the hill country.
What signifies extreme cold? Is that below freezing?
I think it depends upon where you live, because if you're
Okay.
up north, like these temperatures,
I was gonna say, this is
single
normal,
digits,
yeah.
not a huge deal for them. They're used to it. But I was in Iowa for my first news station, and
Right.
we could get pretty cold up there.
Right.
And you would still get those warnings sometimes, because if you're just outside for more than 10, 15 minutes when it's that cold, if you're not bundled up, if you're not covering all of your skin, you can get hypothermia, you can get all that stuff. So for us, though, this is dangerous for sure. And I think even up north, dropping below zero, even if it's just the feels like temperatures, that's concerning.
Yeah, the wind chills up there look unbelievable. And I mentioned this earlier, and you said it's kind of a word that, I don't know, maybe is dramatic, but it is this Arctic blast, if you will.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like a Powerade drink or something, but truly, this is going on all over. This isn't just us.
Yeah, so it's air from way up north, the Arctic, right?
Right.
And it's just basically, we want to get into it, the jet stream, the upper level winds.
Okay.
It's moving farther south. And when it does that, it's able to release all that air from up north. It starts to push farther south than what we typically see. So that means those areas north of us are going to be way colder, because they're
Yes.
getting it.
They're getting it closer.
Exactly. And by the time it reaches us, it's not as cold, but it's cold for us.
I don't know if you can speak on the other areas, but I know some people obviously have family up north, Dallas and Houston. I don't know if you can speak on those cities, but are we going to get it as bad as maybe as Dallas because they're further north?
I did see that Dallas is expected to get a little snow.
Yeah.
So I was doing my weather show earlier today, and I had them on there. I think it was less than an inch, but we're not expecting snow. So they could see a little more snow. They're probably going to see mixed precipitation too. Temperature-wise, I don't think it's going to be a huge change temperature-wise.
Okay.
But it's much farther north where
Got
it's
it.
going to get really bad.
Before we let you go, I did want to ask you, because you obviously have lived in the snow in multiple places. Do you have a story of yourself thinking you could manage it through the snow and then realizing, wait a second here, I don't know if I should have done this today?
I actually still have nightmares.
I have.
Growing up in Truckee, because we get snow a lot, and sometimes
Truckee's like near Lake Tahoe,
Yes.
Northern California.
And so I never had anything too bad in Truckee, but I still have nightmares of just like driving in it, because it was tough. But Alaska, one time, yes, I was driving home, and it was ice, and that's what we're concerned about. So it was ice. I mean, there was snow on the ground too, but it was like a fresh layer of ice. Because, fun little fact, where I was in Alaska, which is Anchorage area,
Wow.
once they drop below freezing for the year and they get snow, it like never goes back
Just
above
stays.
until spring. So
Wow.
the snow is going to stick around. If it's raining a little bit, it's going to be a problem, or it would
Wow.
be snowing. So anyway, one time I was driving, and totally thought everything was fine. The roads didn't look that bad, and I just swerved right off. My whole car like spun around. I was in a truck too, and then I like went into a ditch. But Alaskan people
You went into a ditch.
went into a
Wow.
ditch. But Alaskan people are kind and also used to it. So the car in front of me saw my headlights
Right.
like go wild.
Right.
They turned around. They had like a tow on their car,
Wow.
and they pulled me out.
And you didn't have to pay them.
No, they.
So you saved some
and then
money
they
doing
laughed
that.
and they said, "Where are you from?"
There
and
you go.
And I said, "California," but it snows where. But they
I
were
know.
like, "California."
I'm always cautious saying that too, because I had grown up in an area where it never snowed. It was in a valley. It was super hot, and then I moved to Denver, Colorado. And that first day with the ice and the snow, I think I can turn out to go to work, and I'm in a Nissan Altima, so this is not all-wheel drive by any means. And I went across 2 lanes of traffic like that, and I almost did a 180. But thankfully, it was early enough; nobody was really on the roads. But that right then and there, I went, okay, this is a different ball game. You got to think about it
Yeah.
differently, kind of pump on those brakes, and otherwise, you're going to be a hockey puck.
Yes.
So it's different, and I think a lot of it is just patience. And to your point, maybe just avoiding it altogether. That way, you just don't have to deal with it.
Yes, I always say that. And honestly, we have to come in for work. But
I know.
I'm like,
I have to figure out how that's going to work.
if you can stay home and like drink hot chocolate and eat soup,
that's true.
Why would you not? This is your winter moment.
That's true. Before we let you go, anything else we should know, or where they can follow you on social media, or anything, any type of updates?
Just keep checking in with the Fox 7 weather team.
Okay.
We're all pretty intense about covering it. Keep checking in on that forecast as we get closer, because we'll have a better idea of what exactly we think is going to happen. And my favorite thing to keep, I've said it all day, be safe.
There you go. Meteorologist Leslie London, thank you so much. We'll obviously keep an eye on all this weather and tune in to us right here on the Fox Local app to get the latest updates. We'll be right back. Okay. Welcome back into Austin Now, live from the Fox 7 Austin newsroom on this Wednesday, January 21st. Obviously, a lot of things we've been talking about throughout the week. Number one, top of mind for most people here in Central Texas, this winter weather that is coming this weekend. We just had meteorologist Leslie London on to kind of give you guys the latest in terms of what she's seeing from various models and what she expects. Obviously, it looks like this is going to start Friday and go into Sunday, and some of those temperatures she was giving us as low as possibly 18 degrees over the weekend. So obviously a lot of people wondering, is it safe to drive? Should we go somewhere? It sounds like for the most part from what Leslie said, hey, just to avoid this and just be extra safe and be extra cautious, probably best to avoid the roads in terms of what's going to happen with obviously the power grid like we saw 5 years ago that's a question a lot of people have as well. But something we did do was speak with Jason Isaac, who's really an energy expert, a former congressman, someone who knows this type of information really, really well. We had him in last week to talk about this because this guy knows this type of stuff as good as anybody you're going to run into. And we wanted to ask him about this because the 5-year anniversary of that Uri storm that we saw in February of 2021 is coming up. And we're actually going to have a special on that here at Fox 7. We'll break into everything that happened. Obviously, people losing their lives, power loss, just a really devastating moment for a lot of people. So I know it sounds like nothing on the end because it's just weather, but stuff like this can really be serious for so many families out there. So we talked to him. I do want to show you guys part of that interview because he had a lot of great things to say, and some of the numbers he put out were great. We won't show you the whole thing because I do want you guys to see that interview in full come the actual special of that show, which I believe we're going to air on the actual date, around Valentine's Day. So got some time until that, but because of this winter storm coming in and the timeliness of it, we figured best to hear from him sooner rather than later. So I'll show you some of that, and then when we come out of that, we'll take another break, and then we have an interview, of course, with someone else as well. Well, this video does not work. Okay. To pull that from somewhere else. In the time being, let's show you guys a video from, well, this one's not working either. Well, you know what? We're going to take a quick break. I'm going to try and get these videos up and running. All right, welcome back into Austin. Now I'm going to try and pull that video up for you as we were talking about before we sent it to break. Obviously, with this winter weather coming in, so many people wondering, how do we prepare? How do we get ready? So we brought in Jason Isaac, who's really an energy expert, a former congressman. He knows so much about this stuff just because of his own life experience and really just an expert on all these things. And so we talked to him on what's about to be the 5-year anniversary of the winter storm Uri, which obviously devastated many parts of Texas here. And he's giving us a good perspective 5 years later. This is part of a bigger special that we're going to air around Valentine's Day. But because of this winter storm this weekend, we felt it was timely. I won't show you the whole thing, but we will show a part of it because I think what he has to say is super important. So we'll listen in to what he has to say here. Isaac, taking the time to join us, we appreciate it. I just want to circle back. So for those who do not know what happened, including myself, what went wrong with the power grid?
Well, demand exceeded generation, and that's really the short answer of what happened almost 5 years ago when millions of people throughout Texas in the middle of the night lost electricity, and some would continue to not have electricity for days on end. But really, our state at the time was too dependent on variable sources of electric generation. It was about a third of our grid, 33% of our installed capacity was weather-dependent generation from wind, solar, and it really stopped providing any electricity. As you can imagine, solar in the middle of the night is not going to provide electricity, but our demand, because of freezing temperatures, exceeded what was available for supply.
When you look back at what happened 5 years later, and you've had time to digest it, what is the biggest failure in your eyes?
Well, I think it was a human error was really the biggest failure. We saw that ERCOT responded shortly after the demand exceeded supply. We saw some power plants trip offline. And what happens is they are reading the signals in the grid. I call it, it's a frequency in the grid. And if that frequency drops too low, then the generator starts spinning faster. And if those generators spin, they will ultimately trip off, kind of like breaking a breaker in your home or flipping a breaker in your home. Well, ERCOT responded by doing rolling outages. They were late to the game. They should have done rolling outages to force demand lower, but they were late to the game and they rolled the Permian Basin. This critical infrastructure that's supplying natural gas to power plants around the state. According to the Railroad Commission, natural gas supply from the Permian Basin with that flip of a switch went from 18.4 billion cubic feet to 4 billion cubic feet. We saw a massive decrease in supply available for natural gas power generation, and that's one of the reasons, that's really the reason we saw a massive increase in spike of cost for natural gas.
Hindsight's always 20/20, but were there any warning signs that you guys were aware of or anybody else that were not acted upon?
Yeah, in 2011, my very first legislative session in the Texas House, there was a very similar freeze. 3 to 4 million Texans lost electricity. It wasn't as strong. The duration was not as long, but we still had rolling outages. No blackouts, actually rolling outages to decrease that demand. And really the only thing that came out of that first legislative session of mine in 2011 was let's do some studies. And the studies were done, the recommendations were proposed, but nothing really legislatively was put in place. And then about 6 months before Winter Storm Uri, I had warned in an opinion editorial piece that had it not been for the COVID lockdowns, our demand would have exceeded generation in August. So we would have seen rolling outages months before, but because of the lockdowns, the economy downturn from the COVID era, we didn't see that. So there was this warning that bad times were coming, and winter is really the most dangerous time because freezing temperatures are much more dangerous for human health.
Do you think, and I know obviously it was a terrible thing that happened, but do you think it was necessary in order for people now to understand the severity of what can happen?
I wish it wasn't, but unfortunately, yes, because politicians and myself being one of them were typically, a former one being reactive to things. And so Texas has done some incredible work on our economy, but we've seen an incredible growth in demand for electricity. But yes, it's unfortunate that we had to have this particular issue where hundreds of people lost their lives because we just weren't prepared to meet the demands of our consumers and industry here in this state at the time.
As you said, it's forced people to be reactive. So has the winterization of power plants, natural gas facilities, has that improved? Yeah,
I would say so. The legislature, our governor, lieutenant governor, I think they've done a good job of making sure that we're more closely monitoring when demand gets close to that capacity that we have. They're keeping more power plants online. This was an issue. They're more closely monitoring maintenance. But the fallback of that is we're paying a lot more for electricity. We've seen gas prices down over 20% over the last year, but our electricity costs have increased significantly, nearly 30% since Winter Storm Uri, because we are spending billions of dollars to generators now to tell them to stand by in case the wind doesn't blow or the sun doesn't shine.
God forbid, let's say a storm like Uri hit Texas tomorrow. Could we expect a similar outcome with outages?
Yes, unfortunately, yes, we could, because we haven't done enough to ensure that we have more reliable generation. In fact, you look just over the last year, we've lost thermal generation. We've added a lot of firm capacity in the form of batteries. We've spent about $10 billion. I say we, the market has spent about $10 billion on batteries. That is not reliable, firm generation. Yeah. It would last for 2 hours.
That's it. So that was the interview there with Jason Isaac, and I know some of you are probably very interested in this. I don't want to show you the whole thing, but I thought at that point, well, that was the most interesting part of the interview for me, because in asking him, hey, if something like this does happen again that's similar to Uri, could we experience similar results? And he's like, unfortunately, yes. They have done more to winterize certain power plants. They have done more, but at the same time that they've built this up, the population of Texas as a whole has grown as well. And then he said they've invested $10 billion in these batteries, which in theory sounds great, but he says that may only last for 2 hours. To me, that was shocking. I guess when you talk about the entire state and what it's having to do to back it up, that would be the situation. He also said if that were to happen in an area, let's say like New York, Manhattan, where it's so crowded and there's so much power there, he was saying those batteries may only last for 43 minutes, something around that time. So it is quite jarring to hear him say they're spending tens of billions of dollars on these batteries, but that only may save you for a couple hours. So Jason Isaac, he's the founder and CEO of the American Energy Institute. Obviously, very well-spoken guy there. Served as a state representative here in Texas. Definitely knows the energy market, definitely knows the state and the types of legislation that's being passed in all of this. So a great person to talk to, and we really appreciate him coming in. And of course, you can watch that full interview coming up in our special, which is going to be on that 5-year anniversary of that devastating Uri storm. And so we're going to take another break, but when we come back, we will also bring you that interview that we did in our Fox 7 Focus with Democratic candidate Samantha Lopez, who is running for State House District 50, which is open now because James Tallarico, who many of you have seen in the news on social media, he is running for U.S. Senate as a Democrat. And so now you've got all these openings happening because of those upcoming primaries. So we'll hear from her, and you'll be able to see that interview as well come this Saturday, but we're going to take another break. Thank you. Welcome back into Austin now, coming at you live from the Fox 7 Austin newsroom. New time slot this week, as I mentioned the last couple of days. We're going from 6:30 to 7:30. You can find us on the Fox local app. You can also watch us on YouTube, which I know many of you use YouTube. And you can just go to that live tab there and watch us live. And then this will re-air as well, and you can go back and watch previous episodes on YouTube. I've tried it myself. It does work actually pretty nice. Before we get into the interview with Democratic candidate Samantha Lopez, who is running for District 50, the district that's now open because Tallarico is running for U.S. Senate, I did want to give some updates regarding federal immigration officers. AP came out with an article about an hour and a half ago. Our producer right here also talking about this right before we went on. So I do want to talk about this briefly because we do have some statements from some local leaders regarding this. So just to read you guys the headline from the Associated Press, immigration officers assert sweeping power to enter homes without a judge's warrant. That's according to an internal memo. So they are trying to essentially have a sharp reversal of longstanding guidance meant to respect constitutional limits on government searches. The memo authorizes ICE officers to use force to enter a residence based solely on a more narrow administrative warrant to arrest someone with a final order of removal, a move that advocates say collide with the Fourth Amendment protections and upends years of advice given to immigration communities. The shift comes as the Trump administration dramatically expands immigration arrests nationwide, deploying thousands of officers, obviously thousands, descending upon specifically the state of Minnesota and specifically the Twin Cities in Minneapolis and St. Paul. So that, obviously more of the national, broad stroke here, but I do want to talk about a statement we just got less than 20 minutes ago from the city of Elgin, and I will read this. These are statements below from Elgin Mayor Teresa McShann and city manager as well. So I'll just read these out. In response to public concern regarding recent actions taken by ICE, the city of Elgin, Mayor Teresa, and the city manager have issued the following statements. The city of Elgin is known for being a loving, supportive, and generous community where all people are treated with respect and dignity, and neighbors help others in need. We are also a community where everyone should be able to live, work, and play without fear for their safety and well-being. As a human being, the recent dehumanizing activities and complete lack of compassion, empathy, or understanding by this agency makes my blood boil, she says. And as a person of color, it brings back many unwanted memories of past injustices in our country. It is unconscionable to separate families and tear apart our Latino communities, and I believe the agency is on a slippery slope towards targeting other vulnerable communities, many of whom reside in Elgin. I could be next, or any of my mixed-race family members across the country. She goes on to say, while we do not have direct control over the actions of the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency, ICE, or the manner in which they carry out their duties as a council, we can say that we do not condone actions by ICE or any agency that make vulnerable residents in our community feel they are not welcome. Residents who have not committed any crimes should feel safe in the knowledge that the city council, city staff, and public safety officials have their back, and we will do everything in our power to ensure that they continue to feel that way. That is from Elgin Mayor Teresa McShann talking here, basically saying she's supporting her community. She doesn't believe what's happening is necessarily justice. She says probably the most damning part of the whole statement here, this agency, referring to ICE, makes my blood boil, and as a person of color, it brings back many unwanted memories of past injustices in our country. So obviously, they're going to see a lot of statements like this that we've seen. Obviously, Minneapolis coming out yesterday, some of their police chiefs in the surrounding smaller sort of communities coming out and saying that one of their off-duty officers was, in their words, essentially victimized, by ICE, and they said that person was a person of color as well. And so we're seeing a lot of statements like this from city leaders around the country, and we're also seeing on the other side of the aisle many politicians coming out and saying they support ICE. Many of you may have seen Marco Bittnell's story last night, where we have people inside, these council meetings, one side or the other, yelling at each other. I mean, it's bringing back a lot of memories of what we saw in these school board meetings during COVID. I know that's a bad word, but I mean that's what's going on right now. It's we got black and white in terms of how people are viewing things, and so we'll continue to keep you guys updated with exactly any statements from city officials. This is something we're seeing a lot of in recent days. We are going to take another break. When we come back, I will show you that interview with Samantha Lopez, who is running for District 50 with Talarico running for U.S. Senate. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Austin Now live on the Fox Local app and or maybe YouTube, but maybe the Fox Local app. As I mentioned, we are entering the second half of the show here. In the first half, we brought in meteorologist Leslie London to talk about this winter storm that is coming this weekend. Obviously, that is the topic on everybody's mind, something we're going to continue to follow here in the newsroom and, of course, in all of our newscasts. And so you can follow us on fox7austin.com and all of our social media, Fox 7 Austin, to get the latest updates. Based on what she had told us, the National Weather Service had issued a winter storm watch for all counties in Central Texas beginning January 24th at midnight and lasting through January 26th at 12 p.m. noon. It says areas just to our north are under a winter storm watch already starting Friday night and lasting through Saturday night. The Arctic area is still scheduled to push through starting late Friday night. We will be freezing from Saturday afternoon to Monday morning. Wind chills will drop into single-digit territory by Sunday morning. So this weekend, specifically from what it sounds like from them, I am no expert, from what they're telling us, our meteorologists, that Saturday night going into Sunday morning, that appears to be where it's going to be extremely cold, warning many of you out there not to get on what we believe are going to be extremely icy roads. Back to what I was talking about earlier. Obviously, we showed you that interview with Jason Isaac, the CEO of the American Energy Institute, talking about 5 years later that winter storm Uri, and really letting people know just how severe this all can be. Of course, you'll be able to watch that full interview when we run our special coming up around Valentine's Day. Throughout the weeks, in the last couple of weeks, we've tried to bring in as many candidates as we possibly can because we have the primaries coming up in March. We expect it, and I know we say this, the most important election. This is the most important election. For a lot of people, they feel like this is an important time, obviously, with everything that's going on as we head into right after the first year of Trump's second term. And so we have spoken to a few candidates over the last few days. The most recent coming this week was Samantha Lopez, who has worked right here across the street at the Capitol as a chief of staff, and she coming in and saying why she deserves to get a vote for District 50, which is now open because James Tallarico is running for U.S. Senate. So we'll show you a little bit of this interview that we did with Samantha Lopez earlier in the week. All right, Samantha, let's just get right into it. Why run now? Why the Texas House for District 50?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Alec. I think it's an incredibly important time within our democracy for the next generation of leadership to stand up. I'm running as a woman of reproductive age, a former bilingual educator, and a proud daughter of immigrants. And all three of those are under attack right now. So there's no better way than to start with what I know and ensuring that the attacks do not continue and that everyone has a voice in the Capitol.
With Tallarico announcing he's going to run for Senate, obviously this opens the window for you. How do you separate yourselves from the other Democrats?
Absolutely. So I'm the only former educator in the race, and in a time where our public education system is continuing to be dismantled and attacked, it's imperative to not have only an educator in the race, but also someone that deeply understands education finance. In my time working as a chief of staff to Representative Donna Howard, it's what I'm mainly focused on as a legislative staffer, and it's imperative to ensure that we have someone with institutional knowledge to ensure that we are adequately funding our public schools.
For people that don't know your past history, your experience, explain what you had learned as a staffer with Howard.
Well, I learned how to be an effective legislator because that's exactly what Representative Donna Howard is. She works across the aisle when she needs to, in a bipartisan way when she needs to. Every single bill that she's worked on and that I've gotten to subsequently work on as a legislative staffer has been bipartisan. In order to be able to be not just a noisemaker or an attention maker here in Central Texas, you have to work across the aisle to ensure that we can pass effective legislation.
If you could wave a magic wand and attack a piece of legislation tomorrow, what would it be?
I think the continued attacks on women's reproductive rights. We saw the dismantling of Roe v. Wade and through the total abortion ban through SB 8. We had to come back several sessions later and pass the Life of the Mother Act. Unfortunately, that was too late for women like Nevaeh Good of Central Texas, who passed away because she did not get sufficient help in time when she was going through a miscarriage herself. Unfortunately, those women that have passed away due to the effective abortion ban will never get to reap the benefits of the Life of the Mother Act. So I think it's incredibly important that we continue to talk about those stories and talk about the impacts that legislation like that could have on human life.
What do you say to a pro-life voter?
I say to a pro-life voter that the way to be pro-life is to ensure that every single life living has an adequate education, has accessible health care. You know, we talk a lot about wanting to be pro-life, yet we don't take care of the lives that we have here in this state. The continued attacks on women's reproductive rights, dismantling of public education, attacks on our election system, and attacks on our immigrant communities and marginalized communities, and our transgender students as well. We saw the Supreme Court hear that case last week and heard those arguments, and we'll see the fate of what happens there for our trans athletes. But doing that, we'll see how our laws are going to either allow all children to participate or continue to marginalize those communities.
What do you say to a parent that has a daughter playing high school sports, a trans athlete competing in the same sport as them? They don't like that. They don't want that. What do you say to that father, that mother?
Well, Alec, at this time we're talking about children, right? We're talking about inclusivity of all children in sports. We're talking about ensuring that students have equitable access to sports. I grew up playing sports myself, although this conversation was not as prevalent as it is today. I think it's important that we don't deny the existence of trans families, of trans students, and ensure that they have a place to practice and a place to participate in every single part of a public education system, and that includes sports.
That was Samantha Lopez talking to us there. She's obviously a candidate for Texas House District 50 here in Central Texas, with Tallarico running for U.S. Senate. I know I keep repeating that, but I'm just reminding you that's why she's running for that. We did have more of an extended interview, which you can see more of coming up in our edition of Fox 7 Focus this weekend, specifically Saturdays. We typically air these interviews Saturdays at 9 o'clock, depending on if there's a game, of course. But you can always watch those Saturday night, and then we post them on our website, Fox 7 Austin. And you get to see really these more long-form interviews with these candidates, so they can really tell you who they are, why they're running, why they think you should vote for them. And we're trying to talk to as many as we possibly can before those primaries hit coming up at the beginning of March. I mean, it seemed like a long ways away when we first started talking about this, but we're basically about 6 weeks away, and so those campaigns are really ratcheting up. People trying to get those donations in, people trying to get their voices out there as best they can. So we're seeing a lot of that as of late. I do want to talk about an interesting story here, and the reason being is because we do have some good video here, and I won't show you the interviews from this person, but according to our Crime Watch reporter, Meredith Aldis, this guy, and what we call in this business is a soundbite machine, meaning everything he says you could technically put into your story because everything he says is good and or gives you, good information. And for the viewer, they seem to like these types of people. So there's a guy by the name of Dylan Campbell, and unfortunately, he had his compressor stolen in South Austin. And so there's video that we have, and you can see this guy stealing this thing. And we get a lot of these videos now, and it seems like every single day we have these types of theft stories to talk to you guys about, unfortunately. But Dylan Campbell talked with Meredith earlier, and I will show you the image, the video that we have of this guy doing this. And I'll just try to keep this on loop here. But unfortunate for this guy, Dylan Campbell, seems like a really nice dude, and this is what happens to him. Just horrible. Look at this guy stealing his compressor, very heavy machine there. He said he just had bought a new work truck. He loaded the heavy compressor in the back of it himself. And he said, quote, "I loaded it myself, but it wasn't easy, and I threw my back out. It hurt for 3 days." You know what I mean? Like, he's confused as to how this guy did this right here. Just horrible for Dylan Campbell. But this is a little bit more personal for him. And the reason being is that the compressor that belongs to Dylan Campbell before that was his dad's. And his dad passed away 2 years ago. He had had that since 2007. So, to him, something that's reminds him of his father. And here he gets this new work truck, and this guy comes and steals it. Just a terrible story. I'll read you more from what Dylan Campbell said as well. He goes on to say, I probably missed them by 5 minutes. I just happened to look out my window and seen my cooler look like it was open, and I leave my cooler. I keep drinks in there, so I'm not really worried about people taking drinks out of my cooler. I don't lock it or nothing. I was like, at least close the dang thing, you know? He says he then goes outside. I'm looking at it, and I'm thinking something ain't right here, and I noticed my compressor's missing, and that's when I was like, you know, go into full panic mode. So just really awful here, as you can see this video. This guy, it looks like he's trying to take it away in some sort of dolly here. This is the video that we have, and you can watch more of the full story on our website, fox7austin.com. Meredith Aldis breaks it all down in this story. But Dylan Campbell seems like a really nice guy. Unfortunately, this is something that happened to him, and that compressor being his father's makes it all the worse. So if you have seen anybody that looks like this, I'll try and freeze this so you get a better look. The guy's wearing like one of those, you know, gaiters from what it looks like, or a mask, so you don't get a great shot of him. That's the guy right there. I don't know if that gives anybody any hints or clues, or the dolly, but I'm not quite sure what to make out on that jacket there, but I'm not sure if it's a brand or a place the guy had worked, or who knows. But he's wearing like this black beanie, he's got the mask and this jacket here, and he's carrying away this compressor that he's stealing on a dolly, and he continues to go there, and you can tell the thing's heavy. So yeah, if you have seen anybody that looks like this, or you suspect someone stole a compressor like that, you can obviously call Crime Stoppers and or 911 to give those tips in. So hopefully Dylan Campbell, who was nice enough to speak with us, is able to find that compressor that used to be his father's. We are going to take another break, and when we come back, we'll have more news and updates for you guys. Thanks for watching us on the Fox Local app. You're watching Austin Now. Welcome back into Austin Now. You're watching this on the Fox Local app, or maybe YouTube TV as well. And I shouldn't say YouTube TV. just YouTube. You can watch it on the live tab. You're watching Austin Now, coming at you from our new time slot, 6:30 to 7:30. You can catch us right after that 6 o'clock news ends, right here on the Fox Local app. As I mentioned, we're pretty much unscripted. We take things sort of raw. We show you interviews. We bring people in here. If we get news right here in the newsroom that something has happened, we'll try to bring it to you as quickly as possible. So this is really something that's alive. We're trying to keep it alive. And as we get new information, we feed it out to you as we get it right here live from the newsroom. So we just showed you a couple stories, obviously, here locally with this stolen compressor. You can go on our website, fox7austin.com. Our Crime Watch reporter, Meredith Aldis, doing this story on a stolen compressor in South Austin with what seems like a really great guy. And it was his father's compressor. This thing gets stolen. So sad story. Seems like he's taking it pretty well. I do obviously want to touch on the World Economic Forum, which is happening in Davos right now in Switzerland. President Trump was supposed to be on his way there last night, and this was probably after midnight, to be quite honest, as I was getting ready to go to bed. And I get an update that Air Force One has had to turn around after taking off to head out to Switzerland. It says it was a minor electrical issue. They just wanted to be extra cautious, so they turned back around. But then we see him getting there today in Switzerland, going to the World Economic Forum and talking for more than an hour. I believe he talked for about an hour and 13 minutes. Obviously, there's been a lot of rhetoric over Greenland, the United States being very aggressive about this, saying they need it for national security. This has disrupted NATO. This has disrupted how a lot of people view things. The European Union holding an emergency meeting yesterday to talk about this, and so there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of confusion, and President Trump once again talking about that today. It appeared he accidentally referred to Greenland as Iceland 3 to 4 times. His press secretary, Carolyn Levitt, came out and said, well, he was referring to it as a piece of ice, so he didn't mean to call it Iceland. Anyway, so after this, President Trump goes and has what he believes are some negotiations, and he spoke to the media right after, and I'll pull this up. So the media is gathering out here, and it's kind of hard to hear, but this is him talking right after that. And people are asking him about that deal, and he says it's great for everybody. Great for everybody.
It's a deal that people jumped at. Really fantastic for the USA. Gets everything we wanted, including especially real national security and international security.
How so? Can you give us some details, please?
Well, the deal is going to be put out pretty soon. I mean, we'll see. It's right now a little bit in progress, but pretty far along. It gets us everything we needed to get.
Will the U.S. still get Greenland? Will the U.S. still get Greenland, sir?
Say that convinced you.
Say it?
What did Mark Rutte said?
Well, he's a great leader. I think he's fantastic. The Secretary General was representing the other side, which is really us too, because, we're a very important member of NATO. I've done a lot for NATO. And it's really nice. I mean, it's a deal that everybody's very happy with.
Does it
Sir, how
does it still include the United States having ownership of Greenland like you said you wanted?
It's a long-term deal. It's the ultimate long-term deal. I think it puts everybody in a really good position.
President Trump there talking at the World Economic Forum in Switzerland. I want to go back. Look at this guy. You can tell this guy's like, I never thought I'd be here. Look at this right here. And here are these people talking. You could probably argue the most famous man on the planet. Look at this. Look at this guy. He's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm here. Anyway, that's not the point. President Trump talking, basically saying it's a long-term deal. He said he called the framework of the deal for Arctic security with NATO's leader, Mark Rutte. He said in a social media post he is canceling his planned tariffs on European allies, something he had talked about. He had threatened basically to throw 10% tariffs if they weren't able to get Greenland by February 1st. And if that wasn't to be the case, by June, he was actually also going to throw on another 15% and make that 25%. He says if some NATO members did not help him in his push to acquire Greenland, this abrupt change comes hours after Trump made a speech, as I just mentioned, at this forum. He called his desire for Greenland, quote, a very small ask compared to what the U.S. has given NATO for, quote, many, many decades. Trump says he will not use force to take Greenland. He does want the territory's right, title, and ownership. The president has insisted that control of the world's largest island would benefit the U.S. national security against threats from Russia and China. Just to reiterate what he said in those sound bites there, it's a deal that people jumped at, really fantastic for the USA, gets everything we wanted, including especially real national security and international security. Don't know the details of this. Obviously, it would appear at face value here that the Kingdom of Denmark still does have territorial control of Greenland, which is the largest island. And in case you didn't know this, and I tweeted this out earlier, Greenland, just to give you guys size perspective, more than 3 times the size of Texas. And Texas is massive. So Greenland, 3 times the size. But enough people that live there, it's less than 60,000. You could fill DKR like twice. So not a lot of people live there, obviously. And so before we go, I do want to show you guys some more video here, and we'll go on social media. And this is on my Twitter here. You can follow me at Alec on Fox 7 right here, Alec on Fox 7, for any updates. But I do want to show you this video here, because I know we were talking earlier about those sweeping sort of changes they're attempting with ICE. And if you missed it, the headline read, "Immigration officers assert sweeping power to enter homes without a judge's warrant," according to a memo, which essentially would change how things have been historically done. But this is from Fox News reporter Matt Finn, and he's got some really, really gnarly video here. So we're going to pull this up so you guys can listen in. This is in Minneapolis here.
Let's go. Let's move. Let's go. Hey, load up. Let's go. Load up.
Obviously some pretty gnarly video there, and sort of interesting all this happening. We've seen so many images like this over the last couple weeks in Minneapolis. Matt Finn says, Minneapolis chaos. A Fox News photographer captured a tense moment in the streets of Minneapolis today. It happened when BP Chief Bovino and his convoy were attempting to leave a gas station and found themselves surrounded by protesters who apparently tried to block federal vehicles. Agents then deployed tear gas and pepper spray to deter those agitators. So a situation that continues there in Minneapolis, thousands of agents out there. I do want to take a quick moment. We've only got about 2 minutes left here. We've had an eye on this. This is the case out in Corpus Christi, obviously the Uvalde trial regarding Adrian Gonzalez, the former CISD officer who is facing 29 counts of child abandonment or endangerment. That is, I believe, one of his defense attorneys there standing right in front of the camera. But we know that both sides rested yesterday. We were told they were going to reconvene this morning, and it looks as though after jury deliberation, from my understanding here, it looks like a verdict may be read, if that is correct. I'm not sure if that's going to happen. It is, 7:30. It is pretty late here, but I wish I could stay on this longer, but it looks as though the jury has deliberated. We saw both sides, the prosecution and the defense, resting yesterday. The defense trying to poke holes in a lot of this, essentially saying, your timelines don't match up. You're trying to pin all of this on one officer rather than all of them, trying to put the blame on somebody. It's been a very charged case. We've seen dozens of testimonies from witnesses. We have seen people that worked at the school coming in. We have seen people yelling in the courtroom. We have seen tears in the courtroom. It is very charged. 19 children killed in that massacre. 2 teachers were killed. And I don't want to speak too soon, but it looks like the jury may have finished their deliberations and we may get a verdict. So stay with us on fox7austin.com, here on the Fox Local app, or of course, any of our shows that are coming up at 9 and 10 for the latest. I will leave you with this image, and we will see you guys next week. Stay safe out there.